Welcome back to the Learning to Be a Christian podcast, where we are going through one question per day to be a Christian, which is the official catechism of the Anglican Church in North America, in order to learn and live as Christians in the Anglican way. Today I'm joined again by Father Josh Misner, and we are going to be going through question 43. So question 43 and its answer. How does recognizing God as Creator inform your understanding of His creation? I acknowledge that God created for His own glory everything that exists. He created human beings, male and female, in His image, and appointed us stewards of creation. God's creation is thus a gift to enjoy as we work and care for it. And it cites Genesis 1:27 through 28, and it cites Genesis 2:15, Psalm 8:5 through 8, Luke 19:11 to 27, and 1 Corinthians 4:1 to 2. I'll pass it over to Father Josh as he shares his thoughts on question 43.
Thanks, Father James. I appreciate that the Catechism is taking us to creation now. So we've been talking about who God is, and out of that now we have to turn our attention to say, well, then what is creation? What are we? If we know who God is, and what is the relationship that we share there? And this question and this answer has a long history to it. That's something that the Church has wrestled and struggled with mightily over the centuries, and that is the whole of the doctrine of creation. Now, in modern days, doctrine of creation, sometimes we might hear that phrase when referring to things like ecology or things like that, and that can be a slice of it, but it's certainly not the whole thing. A doctrine of creation is really about discerning what God has made, and like I said, what His relationship is to Him as its maker. So the early church came up with this phrase, the Latin phrase, creation is ex nihilo. Creation is out of nothing. That we did not exist. We're not made out of some sort of pre-existent material or something like that God has sort of rearranged the parts for. There was nothing, and it's even difficult to say that there was nothing. There was not even nothing. There was the absence of even that. And God created. But there was God, as Genesis tells us. There was God, and that He is the one who has created everything. Everything is created out of nothing by Him. And so we exist as His creatures, created as human beings, male and female, in His image, and appointed as stewards of creation, as this question says. In some places of the Church, there's a tendency for us, I think, to be suspicious of creation. So we might look at human desires or the world around us and see things that bother us. And that's, on the one hand, that's true, and we should be willing to do that. Certainly Genesis 3 shows us that creation is fallen. All is not well in the world as we look around. So our desires are misguided. Creation does groan and wait for its redemption with all of the calamities that we see around the world. And yet at the same time, the Scriptures are not ignorant to that. And at the same time, they are willing to point out that creation can actually serve as a guide for us to know who God is. So the Scriptures are willing to hold both of those things in tension, to look at the world and see that all is not right, and yet at the same time be willing to say that creation can be a faithful guide, a trustworthy guide to leading us to God's presence. God is constantly speaking to us in and through His works of creation. His word is still, in some ways, reverberating through the created world, and we can come to know Him through His creation as well, fallen though it may be. So one of the great places where this kind of all came together for me in my own sort of questions around a doctrine of creation and what it means to be created out of nothing is from the famous theologian Augustine of Hippo, and in the book on his Confessions. So in that book, Augustine is doing all of this work to pursue God. And at first he's doing all this work to run away from God, actually, but God keeps pursuing him. And toward the end of the book, as Augustine is coming to believe, as he's coming to have this experience of who God is, and he reads from the book of Romans and comes to faith, he's looking around and he's asking all of these creatures. And so he looks at the skies and the heavens, he looks at the stars, and he lists out all these creatures that he turns to. And he says, "Are you God?" And invariably, every creature responds to him, "No, I am not God, but I know him, for he made me." And
Mm.
it's this beautiful example of what the scriptures teach, that no, creation is not God, it's not one with him, and it certainly it yearns for redemption. And yet, at the same time, creation knows its Lord. So when Jesus says that the stones of the world would cry out for him if the sons of Abraham did not, he means it. Creation knows its Lord, and creation longs for its redemption as well. And so do we, certainly. And creation is part of how we come to know who God is and to learn about that redemption that he is offering us in Jesus Christ.
I love it. And I was reflecting on what you were saying about creation being a faithful guide to learning about God and seeing reality as it is. I know that it was tempting in because of the fallenness of creation to be doubtful of the physical world, to attach those things. A lot of times whether it's hunger or an inordinate desire for sex or inordinate desires for consumption of media. It was easy to tie those things to my physical body and to stop seeing the creation as a faithful guide. And that can steer itself into worship, where you'll have worship leaders saying, do whatever helps you connect with God. It doesn't matter if you stand or if you kneel or whatever, or if you're sitting. It doesn't matter. What matters really is what's happening invisibly or
Hmm.
what's in your heart. And I think that that shows a lack of understanding of creation, the physical world being a faithful guide. And what's interesting about that is this our catechism links that with the male and female. And I think that the gender confusion that we see in our day is connected to the very same lie that what we see in the physical world, what we see in creation, is not a faithful guide to the true nature of things. And that what can be most true about me could not be embodied and fleshed in me, but that it's purely invisible. And so a lot of like people that are in traditions where they're not readily recognizing the physical aspect of worship, and what I do with my bodies, they might know, no, God really did make males and females, but sometimes we cut our legs off when we don't recognize in a consistent way that no, the physical world is a faithful guide, um, both in the true nature of things and in how we connect with God. And we can lose any voice we have to speak into like no what we see and what God made actually matters and speaks to the true nature of things, when we refuse to recognize that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, James. The In so many ways, our moment of where we are in this world has really torn apart the spiritual from the material in so many ways, and I kind of hear that in what you're saying, where the material couldn't possibly lead us to spiritual things. It's kind of the default assumption, or that there are even spiritual things, right? We can't even agree on that oftentimes. Um, and so the things that we have before us, once they're cut off from spiritual realities, once they're cut off from being creatures, once they're nature and not creation, all of a sudden you've introduced this idea that these things exist independently, that they
Right.
could be independent from each other and independent from their creator. And what that means is so often actually a devaluing of creation, right? It's actually a
Mhm.
denigration of creation in so many ways, where I look out at the things around me and it's just stuff. It's just material. And we can keep rolling that out on and on and on, and into the point where we look at our own bodies, as you point out, and say, well, it's just stuff, right? It's just meat and
Right.
wetware.
Right.
And yet the Christian gospel pushes in exactly the opposite direction. The scriptures push us in exactly the opposite direction. For all of the tragedy, for all of the shocking brutality of the world, the scriptures continue to affirm that the world is good, the world is created good. And that goodness comes from being loved by the Lord.
I love it. Yeah, well, I want to relate with the God who made me and made all things. God has made the world in order to be united with him and to be sanctified and to be holy, and he promises to remake the world to be holy and to be sanctified and to be united with him. So I want to join in that story with him. Thank you for joining us as we talked about creation, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.